SCADA environments and process control networks have a unique set of challenges. Attackers, as well as hackers, have been able to infiltrate lots of these systems due to known vulnerabilities and also due to legacy systems that have been working within these environments. Attackers are actually giving a lot of challenges to existing environments, whether it's the operational part as well as the information technology part of these SCADA networks and process control networks. For example, let's have a look at the mass rapid transit system. A lot of what the attackers are trying to do is probably launch, execute scripts from remote terminal units or even from within the critical infrastructure that they have gained access to. Some of these scripts that they're actually launching would actually inadvertently be able to lower down or even kill off some of the cooling functions that are existing within these SCADA environments. What happens is that these systems will actually deploy passive analysis and passive scanning capabilities so that you're able to monitor and see what's really happening in the network. Only then we can really see what's really happening. We can understand what are the changes that have happened in the network, and then we can adapt quickly to some of the responses that are needed and to be able to adjust quickly to those changing conditions as posed by the attackers and the level of compromise on these systems.
Audio Jungle.
Process control networks, SCADA security. We need to know your assets. What we're trying to do before the attack is to try to understand your environment better. We need to be able to see what you have in terms of vulnerabilities, applications, and also the devices that are running on your network. And on top of that, we want to be able to help you understand what level of vulnerability each of these applications have. And with that, you are able to then understand what kind of threats that are pending. So what we have here is really process control networks and SCADA security. We want to be able to really understand what an attacker is doing. And how can we really do that? Well, we need systems that actually have the capability to do passive discovery and passive network analysis of your hacker at work, right? At the same time, we want systems that are reliable, systems that do not really interfere with the actual network on what is really happening in your infrastructure. And only with that and through Fireside, you have that visibility through a dashboard. For these process control networks and SCADA security, what we have is that there are typically vulnerabilities in the protocols and the systems. Each time a hacking command or hacking script is actually launched, it shuts off the cooling systems, which are critical for the functioning of a lot of these power plants and utility stations out there. And since these protocols are vulnerable and they are actually operating legacy environments, legacy systems, the hackers, through a network of hackers rather, you can actually gain control of these systems, reset the passwords, and actually have remote control and attempted privilege gains to force a cooling system to be shut down and then causing disastrous impacts to the real world as we see it. So what we have here is essentially a hacker trying to attempt privilege gain into a remote terminal unit that controls the SCADA process control network. And with that, what he's done is actually issued a couple of scripts and commands to be able to attempt a foothold into these systems. So it could be a remote attempted privilege gain, or he could have had direct access system. Nevertheless, what we have seen over here, what has been attempted and what has been done is ability to read the temperature, as well as then ability to be able to write and execute an integer or float on that specific remote terminal unit as well. And finally, what's really happened over here is a hacking command or script has been launched. That actually turns off the cooling function and starts having the temperature to rise so that we are going to start seeing alarms going off pretty quickly in the system.
Warning, RPG cooling failure. Warning, RPG cooling failure. Danger, RPG containment failure imminent.
Audio Jungle.
So the attacker seems to think that he has gotten through the system and he's actually successfully been able to issue some of the commands to modify the weak protocols. There's also some of the connection parameters that he's actually changed. However, behind the scenes, since we are passively monitoring and also decisively taking action on the system, taking detection parameters, our auto-tuning features and also our predefined SCADA rules automatically have been triggered. And that has actually prevented and also blocked the attempts on what the attacker seems to think is a success on his part. In reality, behind the scenes, we have actually blocked all those attempts, and the system is very much intact as we see it. And basically, the business is as usual for these process control networks and SCADA systems. So it's important in the during phase of the attack to be able to have an understanding on the rules that have been fired. And obviously with SourceFire, now part of Cisco, we have the technology to have passive detection in place. It doesn't interfere with the real-time communication of the network. At the same time, it gives you maximum blocking so that a lot of these attempts of privileged gains to the system are actually stopped in their tracks. And next, you want to be able to then look at the full packet capture on how these attacks have actually taken place at the end system, or you want to be able to then look at the remediation aspect. We can start looking at what passwords were used and how were these scripts actually triggered. And then if we finally want to go to the deeper extent of looking at how the trajectory analysis is actually done and what kind of devices or machines were used by these attackers, we can even go to that level and start looking at disposition of files, and also how these files were designed specifically for SCADA environments and ultimately to get successful hacking and attempts on these end systems as well. So essentially, that gives you a full scope and visibility on the remediation phase as well. The experience we have within process control networks and SCADA networks ensures the reliability of the systems. And we are able to do it via three main methods. First, we need to recognize that there's an innovation of hacking happening. And with this innovation, we need to respond by understanding that and calling it the industrialization of hacking. At the same time, we need to look at and split up these attacks into three main phases: before, during, and after the attack. And finally, we need to be able to piece together a lot of these clues on whether it's vulnerabilities or even isolated threats into indications of compromise. Only with that, we will have a pervasive and threat-centric security model. Thank you.